Oh, hey. Lovely to see all of you here once again. Welcome to the second session of the Encode X Wormhole Educate series. After a very beautiful introduction we had from Urban and Dan last Monday, today we're joined by guest speaker Kevin from Paper Moon, who's going to show you how to build your first application with Wormhole Connect and TypeScript SDKs. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or in the questions tab, and Kevin will get to them at the end. And in the meanwhile, Kevin, feel free to introduce yourself, share your screen, and the floor is yours for the next hour.
Oh, thank you so much, Nevin. And thanks everybody for joining. I'm thrilled to be here for the Wormhole Educate series. I have big shoes to fill from the Monday speakers from Urban and Dan, so I'm a little nervous. No. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us here. And today, yeah, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about Wormhole Connect, and we're going to be talking about the Wormhole TypeScript SDK. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And feel free to ask questions along the way. And if it's something that I can answer quickly, then I will. If it's something that's a bit longer term, then I might save it a little bit towards the end. Hey, Urban. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, my name is Kevin Nielsen. I'm a developer relations engineer at Papermoon, and Papermoon is a core contributor to Wormhole. And we contribute to a couple of other blockchain networks as well. So I think you already got the intro, but just to recap, what is Wormhole, right? Wormhole is a message passing layer for sending messages between blockchains. And so bridging tokens is just one application of things that you can do with Wormhole, but you might also be doing things like calling contracts. You could even send a message if you wanted to. You could send a message that's just hello world or something like that for testing purposes. But the kind of most popular use case that people know of and are familiar with is bridging tokens. And that's typically what kind of brings people in and gets them, understanding is the first application is typically bridging tokens. So Wormhole is a decentralized network, and it's comprised of several different node validators that are running nodes on different chains, and they are confirming receipt of messages, right? So if you are bridging tokens from Ethereum to Avalanche, what's actually being passed is a message, right? And it's a message from the origin chain to the destination chain that passes through and is validated by the Wormhole network, right? There needs to be a specific consensus that says, yes, this event has actually taken place on the origin chain. And then it tells the destination chain, okay, you can now continue, with the rest of the bridging process. Everything looks good to us. Now, Wormhole is connected to more than 30 different chains, not just the ones, shown in this picture, but this is just to give you, a quick little example. Now, Portal Bridge uses Wormhole, and this is typically people's first introduction to Wormhole. And what you may not know is that Portal Bridge actually uses the Wormhole Connect React widget, and that's what you can see right there. It's a very slick interface. And today I'm going to show you how you can integrate Wormhole Connect into your own application in just 2 lines of code. It's exactly right, 2 lines of code, very straightforward. Daniel's asking, can you guys see the shared screen?
Yeah, everything is working perfectly.
Cool.
So yeah.
Awesome, thanks. So Wormhole Connect, right? It's a React widget, as I mentioned, and it's literally can be as simple as 2 lines. You can go, a little bit more involved if you'd like. You can customize it to a pretty high degree. But let's talk a little bit about where Wormhole Connect might typically fit. One of the kind of most common use cases that I see is that if you're running a DEX, let's say on a new chain, right? You'd like users to come and bridge over to that chain, and you'd like them to use your DEX, right? You want them to farm, you want them to trade, you want them to do all sorts of cool things, right? But they need to have funds on that particular chain. So rather than just, giving them a link to an external bridge and saying, hey, go bridge here and then come back on CS once you're ready, right? that's a little bit dangerous, right? Because they're going to leave your dApp. And in today's day and age, you need to capture people's attention. You don't want them to go off and go to a different website and then maybe they get distracted, and you don't want them to leave your dApp. So something that you can do is you can just add a tab, right? Integrate Wormhole Connect into this tab, and they never have to leave your application. So this is actually something that PancakeSwap has done. This is something that Jupyter has done. And Wormhole Connect also powers Portal Bridge. So these are screenshots and examples of what it looks like. There are a couple of kind of defaults and options that you can work with. One of those options is you can have gas be dropped off optionally on the destination chain. So if you're bridging, let's say, USDC from Ethereum to Avalanche, you don't have any Avalanche yet in order to pay for gas fees. A really nice feature to have is that Wormhole can provide you with a little toggle, and you can say, yes, I'd like to take some of that USDC and I'd like to put that towards gas funds on the destination chain. Now, regardless of whether or not you already have gas funds, maybe you already do, that's fine. You don't need that gas feature, but you might still benefit from having automatic relaying and having a relayer take care of your transaction on the destination chain. So what we mean by that is there are kind of two options, and we'll talk more about them. But the manual option is the user initiates the transaction on the origin chain. And then later, once it passes through the Wormhole network, not a long time, but a very short time later, they'll be able to go to the destination chain and they can take care of this claiming step to finalize the bridge transaction. So that would mean that they would have to have gas funds on the destination chain if they're doing this manual claim. But for automatic, you can have a relayer take care of it for you. So all you'll be doing is confirming the transaction on the origin, and then a short while later, you'll get it on the destination. And that is, quite convenient. And, lastly, I think I just want to emphasize as well, it's not just about bridging funds, right? We are bridging cross-chain contract calls. You could be doing things like cross-chain oracles. You could be doing things like, deposits in different lending protocols on various chains. There's really a ton that you can do with Wormhole. And we'll talk more about that as well. So I'm going to switch into a little bit of a hands-on component, and I want to show you how you can integrate Wormhole Connect really quickly and easily. So to do that, we'll be using Scaffold ETH, and Scaffold ETH is a framework for really quickly spinning up Web3 applications. And so I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so everybody can kind of see it well. Not much to see here. All we need to do is clone the Scaffold ETH repo. And so I'm going to do that. Oops. Let me know if people can't really see my screen too well. But hopefully it's large enough. And let's go into Scaffold ETH. And we are just going to make sure that we install any dependencies that we have. And Scaffold ETH also integrates well with Hardhat. It integrates well with, it uses Next.js. And if you're building, in a hackathon, or you just want to get started and, build an application very quickly, this is a, terrific option. We also want to make sure that we add Wormhole Connect. So we'll say yarn add at Wormhole Foundation / Wormhole Connect. So let's do that. And while we're waiting for this, I also want to just go ahead and open up our project. And I just want to make sure that it's the text is large enough so everybody can see. You can open up the packages folder. You can open up, okay, so that's done. You can open up where it says Next.js app, and we can go over to page. We're going to be making just a couple of changes here. And when I say a couple, I mean, yeah, literally 2 lines. But let's also just run our front end here for scaffold ETH. Let's say yarn start. And right now it's not going to have anything there just yet, but it will load up in just a second. Okay. We've got night mode here. Now it's first going to, say, hey, we thought you want to run a local network. We don't actually need that for this demo. So we did not spin up a local network, and that's just fine. So I mentioned integrating Wormhole Connect is just 2 lines. So all we need to do is import it, and then we're just going to figure out where we want to put it in our interface. So to import it, we can just say import Wormhole Connect from at Wormhole Foundation / Wormhole Connect. Wormhole dash connect. So make sure you've got that in there. So that's our first line. And our second line is we're just going to have to plop the Connect widget somewhere in the user interface. So we're going to do that right here. And that's all that it takes. So let's refresh our page, and we should see the Wormhole Connect widget pop up here. And it's just going to take a second to compile, but we'll see it here in just a sec. Oh yeah, thanks Ariane for dropping the repo in there. Cool, and we've got it. And something cool to show off here is that you don't need to work with signers or integrate Rainbow Wallet or integrate MetaMask connections and stuff like that. The widget handles all of that. So I can press once you select a network, I can connect my wallet here, and you can see it's going to be connected. Boom, easy as that. Now, I mentioned it was just 2 lines, and this is something that you can be totally happy with doing just this. But you might say there might be some customizations that you want to make. So let's kind of take a look at a few of the customizations that we might be looking to make. You might want to change the color scheme, for example. So if we wanted to make this like a nice, beautiful orange theme, we can certainly do that. And that's just going to be a couple of lines as well. So we can define a theme, and you can actually go way more in depth than just the theme that I've kind of laid out here. You can go, there's way more things that you can change. But here we're just going to change the color, let's say to orange, right? So we're going to define like a theme here, and we are going to just make sure that we have this theme then included as part of where we have the widget included. So I've just named it theme here. If you've named it something else, you'll want to make sure that you have that. And for all the configuration items, you can go to docs.wormhole. And then you'll see you can change all of the buttons and all of the modals and all of the fonts and really change many different things. So now we've got an orange. We've got an orange Wormhole Connect widget, which is looking nice. But let's say that I want to go a little bit further. There are a couple more things that I want to change. So beyond the color scheme, let's say you only want to bridge between, you only want to offer users a couple different networks, right? Let's say you want to go between Ethereum, Solana, and Avalanche. We can do that as well. Jumaro is asking, will there be a recording or will there be a link to the slides? Yep. So after this, I will make sure I share a copy of the slides with the team so that they can distribute it. Cool. So we can define a config and we can lay out a couple different networks. And let's go ahead and do that. So let's define our config here. Let's just clean it up so that it looks a little nicer. Okay, and we're defining just a couple networks here. So we've got our config constant, and we also have to tell the widget what our config is here so that it knows to, apply those changes. So let's save it. And our website is reloading. And we can see we've only got the selected networks that we chose. Awesome. So I think everybody's with me. Checking for questions. Oh, thank you, Jamar. Let's say, for example, you have some really robust RPCs that you want to use, right? So if the default ones, they're going to be public ones. If you are running your own RPC nodes, right, or maybe you've got a contract and you've got some specific robust RPCs that you want to use, you can certainly define those as well. So all you need to do is specify the RPC, the name of the network, and the RPC that you want to use. This is probably a good time to mention, the chain names that Wormhole uses, right? Wormhole uses chain constants that are the same across, mainnet and testnet environments. So there's a page on the Wormhole doc site which will show you what I mean. But what I mean is, let's say there's, for example, Moonbeam, right? The testnet of Moonbeam is called Moonbase Alpha, but when you're referring to it within Wormhole, you're still going to call it Moonbeam. It'll just be within the testnet environment. So yeah, let's copy this config over. Let's replace the existing one that we have here. And let's save it. And actually, this won't really change anything in the UI because all we did was take out the Avalanche network. So I guess that's changed. You can't really see the new RPC URLs that have changed, but that's quite all right. Okay, so moving right along. Last thing I just wanted to mention about the Wormhole Connect widget. If you're not using React, you can just include a hosted version, and you can drop it directly in the HTML for your page in a manner that looks just like this. So to recap, right? When would you use Wormhole Connect? When would you use the Wormhole TypeScript SDK? The Wormhole Connect widget is perfect if you want to integrate something quickly. You want to drop in the Wormhole Connect, widget and bridge interface as it exists. Whereas if you already have an application, perhaps that's a bridge or an aggregator, or you have kind of your own custom front end interface, if you just want to integrate Wormhole directly into that and you want to preserve your existing user interface and application, then that's something where you might be more interested in using the TypeScript SDK. And so we'll, of course, look at that as well. I think I'm doing okay on time. So there are a lot of topics to cover. And so we're going to look at an overview of the SDK. We're going to look at some of the utilities that it offers and some of the features. In order to do that, I also want to cover some core concepts of Wormhole in a general sense of, using Portal Bridge, using Wormhole, and how that translates over to the SDK. There are three main types of transfers. So we'll be looking at each of those three types and kind of how setting each of those up differ. We'll look at tracking and redeeming your transactions. We'll use Wormhole Scan to do the tracking. And then for the redeeming, that will be taken care of in our script. And it's also something that can be done at Portal Bridge. And in terms of the hands-on component, of course, we'll look at, we'll install the SDK and we'll do a demo to make sure that we bridge from Avalanche over to Solana. Okay, so the Wormhole TypeScript SDK, it's a modern TypeScript SDK that's modular, and it's a great way to make your dApp multi-chain. As I said, it's a great way to, it's a great option if you want to integrate this into an existing dApp that you have. So, one example is the Moonbeam team has a bridge interface for bridging within the Polkadot ecosystem, but it also uses Wormhole in order to do bridging to incorporate, outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. And so it uses the Wormhole TypeScript SDK. So a couple important features to keep in mind, right? There's a universal API that works across chains. So you can call methods on chains and you can know that they're going to perform consistently and give you the same behavior that you're expecting, regardless of the platform. So regardless if it's Solana or EVM or Cosmos. You have a lot of customization ability. So if you want to subsidize gas fees, if you want to use a specific relayer, a specific RPC, all of this you can customize. And a third option here is that there are, the three different types of transfers that we're going to talk about. All of these are, of course, supported by the Wormhole TypeScript SDK. And generally speaking, I think I've mentioned this a couple times, but generally speaking, right, Wormhole Connect, plug and play, Wormhole TypeScript SDK. This is more customizable and more for integrating into your existing application. So I first want to talk about chain contexts and kind of what they provide and how they help us out. So the SDK is going to give us the ability to grab a chain context, and in that is going to provide utilities and methods that are pertinent to that particular chain. Most of the methods that we're going to use, a lot of them are platform specific, so encompassing many chains, and platform meaning they're going to be EVM, they're Solana or Cosmos ones. But there are a couple cases where a specific chain can override this platform functionality, but our chain context will take care of all that for us. So what we can do is we can just assign we can create a constant, we'll call it send chain, and we can get the chain context for Avalanche, which is going to be our from chain. And we can set our receiving chain to be Solana. Once we've done this, we can also gain access to helpful other pieces of information, such as getting an RPC for that particular chain. We can also do something which is very important, which is we can get the TokenBridge information. And so this information, if we call get TokenBridge, this will give us information like the chain ID for the chain we're working with. This will give us the contract address of the Wormhole TokenBridge on that particular chain. It'll also give us relayer addresses. It'll give us a ton of info. And I've just provided just a snippet here of the info that it provides. But again, yeah, it gives you the core bridge contract, the relayer. CCTP is for Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol. And that is a special type of transfer that Wormhole supports. So you get back a ton of information. And, why is this important, right? You're going to be working with many different chains, right? And you don't want to have to kind of manually manage this, all by yourself. So it's helpful to have this information and to be able to refer to it. We can also see, are we in testnet or mainnet environment? And then, of course, what's the chain ID for the environment that we're in? So at the bottom, you can see the 43113. That's Avalanche's testnet chain ID. Another important topic to mention are addresses and how Wormhole works with addresses. So as you can imagine, different environments, right? Like Cosmos, Solana, and EVM, they use different types of account addresses. And so rather than kind of giving you, rather than this kind of being a little bit unpredictable or you having to manage the different types of accounts, instead, Wormhole uses universal addresses that are all 32 bytes. And you know exactly how they're going to behave and how you're going to receive them and interact with them. But of course, you can modify and you can call functions that will say, hey, I want to normalize this. I want to get a universal address, or I want to go back to the regular address that my users see, right? So this allows the SDK to work with addresses in a way that's consistent, regardless of the underlying chain. And it's not really a hard concept, right? So if we look on the next page here, if you have an ETH address, and this is my personal developer address here, if I want to convert that to a universal address, I can pretty easily do that with the Wormhole TypeScript SDK. I can just call to universal address on this address that I have here. And if I want to print that out, I can say toString, and then you'll see here, it just looks like a normal EVM address, but it's padded with a bunch of extra zeros to get it from 20 bytes up to 32 bytes. So that's, that's a pretty simple way. We can also have a Solana address here, and we can also take this out to from the way that's presented to you in Phantom Wallet, the way that users are used to interacting with, and we can present it in a hex encoded 32-byte format. Another important utility to keep in mind, right, is when you're working with different chains, they're going to use different token decimals. And you might have this stuff memorized, right? You might know exactly you might know that Ethereum is going to have 18 decimals, and you might know that Solana is going to have 9. But it's important to have this information accessible and readily available. And so Wormhole provides 2 different ways, for you to get this information. And the first one is you can just say, you can call it a method on your sending chain context, right? We can say config.native token decimals, and we can get, we can reach into that chain context, and we can get that information. And another way we can do it is we can just say, we can ask Wormhole to get the decimals by providing the chain that we want to get the information for. So we need to provide both the chain and a token address. But token address could just be native. So we could just pass in native in quotes, and that will give us back the decimals for the native token of the chain. So I think earlier, I mentioned that Wormhole provides 2 different options for bridging, right? You can have manual or you can have automatic relaying. So manual, this is going to be something where the user initiates the transaction on the origin chain. It's going to be validated by the Wormhole network. Once everything looks good, you'll be able to claim it on the destination chain. And so you'll need to have gas already on the destination chain. And this may be desirable in certain cases. And in other cases, you may just want to use the automatic relayer, which is going to detect the transfer that's taking place, and it's going to complete it for the user. So they won't need to go and finish anything. All they'll be doing is on the origin chain, they'll kick off that transfer, and everything will be done from there, which is awesome. Stanislav asks, is automatic more expensive than manual? Not always. As we can see here, right, the estimates that we're getting here for this automatic bridge and this manual bridge, it looks like the manual one is actually slightly more. These are just estimates, but yeah. You also have the option of, right, you can run your own relayer, right? And so you may want to do that. That's certainly an option. As an application, you can run, your own Wormhole relayer. Okay, and the native gas feature. I think we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, but you didn't see it in action. So if we are, let's say, bridging, for example, in this case, we're going from Matic over to Avalanche. If we don't have any, of the native gas token, we can do a little bit of a swap with the slider in order to get some of that. And that is actually a parameter in all of the token transfers is would we like to receive some of this native gas. So that's a big feature. If anybody's ever bridged to a new chain that they've never been to before, you might be bridging USDC, you might be bridging ETH, you might be bridging some various token. It can be kind of a scary experience if you don't have that native gas token ready to go. Now there are options, right? Like there are applications that allow you to do gasless swaps, right? But it's a big deal to have this incorporated with the bridge. Because this is saving users from going somewhere else. It's saving users from doing another step. And so it is a big deal to have this combined as part of the bridging process. Okay, so the 3 types of transfers, right? What are the 3 different types of transfers? And there may be a couple more than this, but these are the 3 main ones that we're going to focus on. One is a token transfer. And this is the standard Wormhole token transfer. If you've gone to Portal Bridge and you're bridging ETH, you're bridging you're bridging any type of ERC20 token, you're probably doing a standard Wormhole token transfer. There's also a Circle transfer, and this uses Circle's CCTP or cross-chain transfer protocol. I'll tell you a little bit more about what this is and what makes it different in just a second. We also have a gateway transfer. And a gateway transfer is when you're going to or from a chain into Wormhole's gateway chain on Cosmos. And Wormhole's gateway chain on Cosmos is a particular Cosmos chain where funds can go into and then they can get distributed around the Cosmos ecosystem through its native Cosmos IBC bridging solution. So the token transfer, again, this is the most common Wormhole method. If you're just bridging a token, more than likely it's going to be through a token transfer. So what do we need to provide to the SDK for parameters if we're doing a token transfer? So of course, we need to provide the token that we want to move. We need to say the amount. We need to say the source address, where it's coming from. We need to provide the destination address, where it's going. We need to decide if we want to do automatic relaying. We can optionally provide a payload. So this would be if you're calling a contract and you need to provide some data to the contract that you want to call, which you would, if you are calling a contract, you're typically going to need to provide some sort of data, even if that function they're calling, even if it doesn't have parameters or something, you still need the function selector to say, hey, what method do you want to call? If you're just bridging a token, though, that might be empty, and that is fine. Lastly, we're going to say we have this option. We say, hey, do we want to include a little bit of this native gas if we're doing a transfer, right? And so that's kind of the last option that we have here. We also have a Circle transfer. And what makes this different from a normal token transfer? So Circle, as you know, is the issuer of the USDC stablecoin. And when we say native USDC, right, what does native USDC mean? That means that the version that you're talking about is a canonical version of USDC that's issued and redeemed on that particular chain. So rather than saying, let's say you issue Ethereum, you issue USDC on Ethereum, and then you move it over, to Avalanche, for example. If you do that, via the old way, which is, that is issued and redeemed on Ethereum, and now it's moved over, it's kind of wrapped on Avalanche. What you can instead do, if Circle natively issues that on Ethereum and on Avalanche, then you can use CCTP to move that over. And the parameters here are quite similar to a token transfer. However, you will notice a couple changes. One is just that we don't need to specify what token we're moving. If we're doing a Circle transfer, we don't need to then specify what token we're moving. It's obvious that it's going to be just USDC. And we also have this automatic delivery Boolean. We have undefined here for the payload because we're just moving USDC. We're not providing any other information there. Jumaro is asking, on a first transfer, which tokens are supportive? Is the transfer on a native token or in a Wormhole minted token? Great question. So in the first one, you can move any arbitrary token, and this includes native tokens. This includes ERC20s. And if a token has never been bridged before, there's like an attestation step that needs to take place, but that's quite simple. And so this is a permissionless step that can be taken. And so it allows you to bridge an arbitrary token, which is really powerful. Okay, so moving back to our circle transfer, we can include a little bit of native gas. That's fine. But this looks very similar to our token transfer. We're just not specifying a token address because that's obvious from the circle transfer part. Okay, and lastly, we've got a gateway transfer. What is a gateway transfer? A gateway transfer is when you're moving funds to or from the Wormhole gateway chain on Cosmos. And again, the gateway chain acts as kind of a hub for bridging. So rather than having, if there's many different chains on Cosmos, rather than having each of them connected to Wormhole, we can connect one chain to Wormhole, and then once it's over on the gateway chain, then it can use the Cosmos native IBC in order to distribute assets around Cosmos. And this helps for unifying liquidity across Cosmos chains and relying on their own unique bridging IBC that they have, their own unique bridging model. So a couple changes here with the gateway transfer. We are going to provide just the token, the amount, and the to and the from address. So that's quite simple. We're going to be looking just at a token transfer today, but I did want to introduce those other types and make sure that you have an understanding of the different types of transfers. So how are we going to track our transfers? Today, we're going to use the TypeScript SDK to move from Avalanche to Solana. We're going to make sure that we check on our transfer status and see how it's going, see that it's been confirmed, and see what everything looks like. One important thing that I do want to point out is that when you're working and looking on Wormhole Scan, you got to make sure that you're on the correct network. So I just mean mainnet or testnet. If you are trying to look up a testnet transaction hash on mainnet, you're going to get an error or not found, and same thing. So just to avoid any of that, make sure that you're on the correct network. Recovering transactions. We don't need to do this as part of the example that we're going to be doing today. That redemption step is automatically handled. But if we did need to ever redeem a transaction, a couple different synonyms we could use, right? Recovering a transaction, manual redeem, resuming, they all refer to the same thing. But if you're on Portal Bridge, you can do it by just clicking resume transaction at the bottom. And you'll just need two things. You'll need the source transaction hash and the name of the source chain. And with that, then Wormhole will prompt you. It'll say, hey, can you switch to the destination network? And then it'll give you a transaction to confirm. Okay, so now demo time. Let's get into the demo. And of course, we need to do a little bit of installation, but this will just take, it'll take like a minute or two. So we're going to clone the Wormhole SDK TypeScript repo. This includes some examples, including the example that we're going to be working with today. So I'm going to set up another folder. We're going to go to, I'm going to first clone the Wormhole SDK. I'm going to head into it. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. I hope people can see my screen okay. That might be a little too big. Okay. And I first want to install the Wormhole SDK. Now, there are 2 versions or so. This is the production one. And if you Google Wormhole SDK TypeScript, you will see one that is also offered by an organization called Certus One, and that's the alpha version. So just something to know if you're curious which is which. So let's install this. And I also have a couple different installations here. And you might be saying, hey, why do we need to install this and that? And you may not need to on your system, but just on the Mac that I'm running, this was what I found to be the most consistent way to get a clean install and have everything working. For this RPC WebSocket thing, there's like a new version that doesn't quite play super nice. And so we're installing a version that's one below that. So let's install Axios. Let's also install this WebSocket specific version. Let's run npm I to take care of anything left. And let's run npm run build. We want to get our examples and we want to get everything configured and ready to go. So while that's going, we can still kind of busy ourselves with doing a couple other things. So in the example that we're showing, we're going to go from the Avalanche Fuji testnet over to Solana DevNet. So it would be a good idea to get an ETH address set up to be able to get some funds from the Avalanche faucet, and to be able to also get some funds for the Solana DevNet faucet as well. So I have the links for those. You can also just Google, right, Avalanche faucet, Solana DevNet faucet, and you can get those same pieces right there. So our build was successful. Let's open up our examples repo and let's get the env file ready to go so that we can actually build what we're looking for. So I'm going to open up the file. And if we go to the examples repo, this is kind of where we're going to be spending our time. So you can see there is a .env example. So go ahead and plug in your ETH and your sole private key. We do not need the Algorand mnemonic at the moment for the example that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to plug in my demo private keys here. And we're going to be working with TokenBridge. So let me see. Okay, everything looks good. Let's head back to here. I can speak just a little bit about TokenBridge and what the example that we're going to be doing here and how it works. And you might see some similarities between what we've already talked about and what we're going to be running in TokenBridge. So we need to import a couple different packages from the Wormhole Foundation SDK. We're including, notice there's one called Wormhole. There's also a lowercase one called Wormhole, so make sure you have both of those. And we're going to import some platform-specific packages, including the EVM one, the Solana one. We also have some signer helpers. And the very first thing that we do is we're going to create a Wormhole object, and we are going to tell it what environment we want to use. Do we want to use mainnet? Do we want to use testnet? And then what platforms are we going to be working with today? And in this case, it's both EVM and Solana. We grab our chain contexts, which we talked about before. These are going to hold all of the chain-specific methods that we need, and we're going to rely on them quite a bit through the rest of this process. We're going to define a token that we want to bridge. And remember, I said that you could either pass in the sending chain as well as a token address that you want to bridge. That's perfectly fine. But you may also just want to bridge the native token. And so that's what we're doing here. So by saying native, that means we want to bridge the native gas token of the Avalanche network. We're also going to define an amount. In this case, we're just saying 0.05. So we're going to bridge a little amount. The faucets give you a pretty small amount, and so we don't want to overdo it there. We do not need to use automatic relaying. We are saying we're going to set that to false. We also don't need to have any native gas put over as well. We're going to get a signer for both our sending and receiving chain. And we have a couple more parameters that we're setting here. Do we want this to be a round trip? We don't need to do any sort of round trip. We have a recover transaction ID as undefined. This just means that we are going to, later as part of the script, we're going to take care of this redemption step later. So we're going to be doing a token transfer, and these parameters are going to look similar to the ones that we looked at before. And we're going to log out some information as well. And we are going to be providing information about the attestation, and we're going to retry, to get information if the attestation is if we're not getting it as soon as we'd like. So we're going to check at a specific increment. So let's actually run this, and then we could talk, a little bit more about the process. So all we need to do to run it is go into our examples folder. And there are a bunch of different scripts, but one of them is TokenBridge, right? That's the one that we're going to be using. And if we just use the command npm run tb, this will run the TokenBridge script. So let's go ahead and do that. Last thing, let's make sure my env was correctly defined. Good thing I double checked. So I just plugged it into the env example, but you actually want to make sure that you plug it into a file that's .env. And I just want to make sure that I'm in the right place, which I am. So make sure that it's in the examples repo. And you'll see it side by side, .env example. So that's a key component before you run this example. Make sure that you've got that set up. Okay, let's run npm run tb. Awesome. So we're seeing that our source token here is from Avalanche. It's going over to Solana. And you can see the amounts here are a little bit different. But of course, we mentioned that. We mentioned that Avalanche has 18 decimals. Solana has 9 decimals. We've got our transfer information here. We've got our transaction hash for the Avalanche testnet. And we can take this and we can actually go ahead and look it up on wormholescan.io or on the Avalanche Blockchain Explorer. So let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, everything is looking good here. So it's actually gone through the entire process. And let's actually follow this transaction step by step. So I'm first going to copy the transaction hash, and I'm going to go to snowscan.xyz. Cool. And this is on the origin chain, this is kicking off our transfer. It's 0.05 Avalanche as we want it. And we can take this same transaction hash and we can head over to Wormhole Scan. And remember, make sure that you're on the right environment. So if it's mainnet, you're on mainnet. If it's testnet, you're on testnet. Cool. So we've got our transfer information here. We've got our status showing that a VAA has been emitted. And what this is telling us is that it's passed through Wormhole, and it's on its way to Solana. Now it's actually already arrived on Solana. And if you look here, if it says find redeem, if you can't find a transaction, that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to look up the transaction hash on Solana. So you can look up by a particular transaction ID. You can also just look up your address on Solana. That's fine too. So let's take one of these and let's go to Solana DevNet Explorer. and make sure that you are on the correct network. So DevNet, oops, click here. Cool. So I also just want to specify my address here. So if I just open up my Phantom wallet, I want to copy my DevNet address. And I also just want to show you what that address looks like. So I've done a couple different bridges, but if I go to tokens, yeah, I've got a ton of wrapped Avalanche here on Solana. But that's also because I've done a bunch of different bridging transactions. We've only done the 0.05 in this example. So lastly, just a couple of few things to talk about as we wrap up, right? Make sure you get funds from the faucet. And yeah, let's talk about this in context a little bit. So I borrowed this slide from Monday's presentation, and I just wanted to remind you that there are many different layers, right, to building on top of Wormhole. So Wormhole is the messaging layer, but there might be several different layers built on top before the user kind of interacts with Wormhole. So one of those examples, right, is Squid, and Squid is a it makes it easier, for your developers to build, cross-chain applications. And then LeFi, for example, acts as more of an aggregator. So this is more like somebody is uncertain, of exactly which route they're going to take, and LeFi will help aggregate all of that, together for them. And so, yeah, I just want to mention that CCTP is another example here, and Wormhole has integrated with CCTP, so you can bridge USDC using Wormhole. And I also wanted to show you that you can check out some of the flows, both on testnet and on mainnet here on Wormhole Scan, which I think is quite cool. See where funds are going, see which chains people are going to, and the amount of tokens that they're bridging. Okay, and where should you go from here? So check out the Wormhole doc site. Check out the SDK docs, also on the Wormhole doc site. Check out the Wormhole Foundation GitHub. We mentioned Wormhole Scan. And of course, you also need to check out the Wormhole Discord. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, so thank you, everybody.
Amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I just want to say there's a question from Brandon in the chat, but it seems like you saw it already, so feel free to take it up.
I've been looking the whole time at the chat, and I haven't been toggling to the questions. Okay, but I see, yeah, the questions are in the chat one. Good. Follow-up, Brendan says, follow-up question around the SDK. If you're building a cross-chain app, but you don't plan on exposing a bridge until a later time, can the SDK be used strictly as a wallet connector in the meantime? Or is the SDK used for bridge actions only? Good question. Really good question. So if you're using, for example, Wormhole Connect, right? When, let me pull it up if it's still here. When this connect wallet button, right? This is only going to connect to the widget. It's not going to connect to the rest of the page. So the Wormhole Connect widget is going to handle all the, connection, all of the connection details, but it's only going to connect to this particular widget, right? If you have a contract here, it's not going to, allow you to interact with that just from the Wormhole widget. Now you can, of course, add that connection otherwise, but it might make sense if you're just wanting to connect, to a wallet, right? You might use like Rainbow. You might use other sorts of integrations that can help you do that. Yeah, you can use WAGMI, you can use ThirdWeb. No, WAGMI and ThirdWeb will work fine. You can integrate and use both. It will not create problems down the road. Oh, anytime, Brendan. Thanks for asking a great question.
Cool. Do you have any final questions, guys? We have a couple of more minutes left until we have to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them now. Until people do ask any questions, Kevin, where can people reach you on the socials?
Oh, sure. They can reach me on, I see, Telegram is probably the best way. So my Telegram is t.me / Kevin Moonbeam. It looks like that. Let's see. Does that open up? Yeah, that opens up correctly. Good.
Yeah, works.
So that'd be a good.
Yeah.
A good way to go.
A couple of different questions popped in just now. One's from Adam saying, "Can you explain more on the native gas features?"
Oh, sure. Native gas feature. Yeah. So the idea behind the native gas feature, right, is let's say that you're bridging a token, like you're bridging USDC from Ethereum over to Avalanche, right? So your USDC is going to get delivered to Avalanche, but if you don't have Avalanche token, the native AVAX, you're going to have a hard time making any transactions on Avalanche. So what Wormhole can allow you to do, both through the SDK or through Portal Bridge and through the Connect widget, is to say, hey, would you like to take a little bit of that USDC? Do you want to take $1 or 50 cents? Do you want to take that and do you want to convert that into the Avalanche token so that you're going to get both the USDC that you wanted to bridge and you're going to get a little bit of the native gas token so that you can make transfers. So that's all it is. It's totally optional. You don't need to do it, but it is a really nice feature to have, mostly for first-time people bridging over to a new chain. Does Wormhole support ICP? By ICP, do you mean Internet Computer?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah.
I don't believe that Wormhole supports ICP, but that could change. Oh, you do? Okay, cool. Gveen says yes. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I don't believe that Wormhole supports ICP at the moment, but yeah, it could change in the future.
Cool. I think that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thank you very much for coming. Kevin, any final words or wisdom for the audience?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for listening and being such a great audience. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate your attention. And yeah, I'm really excited for you guys and thrilled to be a part of this.
Amazing. Thank you to you once again, and thank you to the audience for coming in for the second workshop. We'll see you next Monday for workshop number 3. Until then, stay cool and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nevin.